I think his legacy will be his wisdom, his knowledge, his great sermons that he has done that have been so informative and thought-provoking.
I very much appreciate that his form of Judaism was not here's a set of rules, don't eat bread kind of thing. His style was you understand it, you're responsible for what happens. Mm-hmm. And to me that's a very alive, real, current religion.
I don't even know the prayers, most of them. Not that I'm proud of that, but Rabbi Lebow has given me permission to be myself, that it's okay that I don't know all that I don't do all that, because what I do is I think about everything and I look at life deeper.
He said, who told you that those stories were the truth? I said, well, the synagogue I grew up with in New Jersey was a traditional synagogue, and they said that's what happened. I said, there's no way in hell that's what happened. And he said, I'm telling you, those stories don't have to be looked at literally. There's another way to look at them, as a metaphor, as an old allegory. And he challenged me. He says, go home for the next year. Come back in 1 year, and I want you to read every week, everything in the weekly portion. And then I want you to come back and get up in front of the congregation and share with them what you learned. And I did.
Just a regular Shabbos, but it might have been something bigger, because I know we had a bigger crowd, and it was on being bluish. And it was this, way of talking about valuing your Judaism. And it's a very subtle story, a subtle way of basically telling parents, this is not just a drop-off, that you need to commit and you need to practice being bluish at your house and in your life, and not just when you drop your children at temple.
He said that he needed to reduce his workload and would love it if I would take over teaching the basic Judaism class to people who are interested in converting. And that just opened up so much to me. It was a chance for me to take what I already knew about Judaism and just increase it 4,000-fold.
For some unwritten reason, we have all sat around our Wednesday Torah study table in pretty much the same place for over 15 years, and I sit right to his left, so he shouldn't be shy that I know every part of his inner ear and his left arm. But it's been an honored place to sit.
His legacy in the community, the religious community, even in Atlanta, is going to be strong, because he is known by all these other religions, whether they're Hindu or Muslim or Catholic or Protestant, as the guy who gets everybody together for this pre-Thanksgiving celebration.
First of all, he knows everything about everything. It's amazing, really. I mean, like, the origin of this word, or when this thing we're talking about was proven scientifically, and how, I mean, it's amazing. And it's kind of fascinating, because then he can turn around and relate everything and anything to Jewish thought and Jewish law and Jewish values.
Well, I want to share a secret for those at TK that don't know this, but Rabbi Lebow has a photographic memory. And that means that he knows how often we go to services. He knows when we leave services early. He knows if we volunteer for the temple.
I know how much he appreciates and loves graphic novels, loves all the things. I mean, we talk about Marvel and DC all the time, and I appreciate that I don't have to talk to him about religious things. And I'm looking forward to his writing. I know he's working on some stuff, and I've seen some of his work. I'm really excited to see, now that he has more time, what's he going to share with us in the future, because I know it's going to be really cool.
It's just his presence here just makes me feel very comfortable, very safe. He's just, and I'll say this in jest, he's a short little guy, but his heart, his presence, his just everything about him is so big.
The funeral homes call him and say, we have a Jewish person and they would like you to even not a congregant. And he gets up and goes every time, People don't know about that about him.
I basically had to go to the rabbi with Brad Kacher, who was the immediate past president, and asked the rabbi to take a salary cut. And he was very gracious about it. He knew he needed to do it. Very difficult dinner, but he took basically all the tension right out of it right away by saying, of course.
When you were conducting a pre-funeral interview with 4 strangers, and they mentioned the occupation of their grandfather, you had remembered the trivial detail of my grandfather's occupation, and lo and behold, you found my long-lost cousins.
That was when my father-in-law passed away. I came to shul one afternoon or evening, I don't even remember the time of day, and I was saying Kaddish in the sanctuary by myself and just, going through the prayer book, trying to find things that made sense. And I heard something behind me, someone walking. I turned around, it was Rabbi Lebow. And he looked at me, he said, "Is everything okay?" I said, "Yes," and he knew what I was doing there, it was obvious. And he said, "Can I sit with you and pray?"
1 year after I joined is when I got engaged and talked to Rabbi Lebow about doing our wedding. And he treated my husband and I as if we had been already members for 20 years, like just so warm, welcoming, making us feel like we were really important to be here, which of course made me want to be here even more and to participate more because he, made you feel like you were important to the synagogue.
We asked him to do a simple blessing for us for our 25th wedding anniversary. And we came in and he, unscripted, did a renewal of vows for us, taking us through our relationship step by step and what we found amazing about each other. And the way he could just, off the cuff, know us, help us rediscover ourselves, rediscover our love, our knowledge of the relationship with the temple, everything, all just out of the blue. It's just amazing.
Well, he has married both my sons, and he has also been involved in the conversion of my daughter-in-law, where we took my daughter-in-law and my grandson to the mikveh. It was a very special moment. And he's also been there for the naming of my grandchildren.
So I would wear a lot of army boots, and my father-in-law did not like those, so he would hide them from me. So every time I would come, I'd put the boots by the door. When I'd leave, they'd be gone. So I'd have to go looking for them. So when he passed away, I wore army boots to his funeral. And it's a little emotional for me, but everybody was looking at me and they were pointing at me and whispering about me. And Rabbi Lebow came up to me and goes, "I know that there's a story behind those boots." So I explained it to him, and he loved it. He loved it. So now every time I see him, he goes, "Where's your boots?"
And Rabbi Lebow asked me, "Do you want this to be a serious or a fun wedding?" And my response to Rabbi Lebow was, "I would be very disappointed if you didn't enjoy my daughter's wedding." And he took it from there and had a very enjoyable experience. Was something that my family still talks about.
And he always had an inappropriate story to reminisce from his childhood. And our parents, had they have been in the room, would probably cringe, like, "I cannot believe you just shared this with our children." But to us, it was connections. It was a way to see him not as a rabbi, but like as a friend, as this person that like, wow, this guy is really cool.
And they had a cupcake birthday party for my daughter. He used to live in the neighborhood. He showed us his whole house. He had guitars on the wall, like all this, I recall this like beautiful lacquer art on the wall. He had a comic book room. We probably spent 2 hours there. Again, he hosted my daughter's birthday party. He sat her on his lap and played the guitar while she was on his lap. Somewhere I have pictures. To me, it was almost like took my breath away.
He babysat us the day that our little sister was born and picked up our grandma from the airport. We stayed the night at their house, and I guess I was 7 and she was...
I was like just shy of 4.
Yeah.
And apparently I wasn't talking that clearly, so Madeline and Rabbi always told us, yeah, that they were like, they couldn't understand a word I said, and they would ask her and she would interpret. and they always kind of
likes some
tell
milk,
that
please.
story.
I have a couple of books in my personal Jewish library now that when it was my birthday, Rabbi Lebow would call me into his office and say, Beverly, you can pick a book. And the overwhelm of the sheer number of volumes in his office was tremendous and just inspiring.
My son at his bar mitzvah decided a few hours before his bar mitzvah that he did not want to wear his suit coat. 13-year-olds. That's fine. But, and I was fine with that. Actually, we had considered just a blue jean Shabbat anyway. But it was very sweet because when the rabbi got to shul and Micah was not wearing his suit coat, we had to move where the talis service was, move it to the very beginning so he would have something sort of on during the whole beginning part of the service. And then Rabbi Lebow also took his suit coat off.
I remember being in services as a little kid, and I remember him somersaulting off of the bima. I feel like that grew into sort of a characteristic Lebow move. But for me, it was delightful. And it made me feel excited and surprised. And I don't remember what we were talking about. I don't remember what holiday it was happening, but I remember that it made me want to spend more time at temple. I remember it made me want to spend more time with him.
We were at Friday night services one night, and Rabbi Lebow comes up to me just like he comes up to people at the beginning of services and said, "So, I hear your daughter's gotten over her teenage angst." And I was like, "What? How did you know that?" It was on Facebook. Well, at the time, I wasn't allowed to be a friend of my daughter's on Facebook, but Rabbi Lebow was.
And I invited him to speak at my high school's baccalaureate ceremony. And unfortunately, the invitation was rescinded. And it led to a lot of drama in Cobb County and throughout the state of Georgia. And ultimately, Rabbi Lebow and I had many conversations, and he stood up for what was right and what was just, and taught me that in life you can take two approaches. You can have a heart of love and a heart of hate, but you only have one heart, so it's important to love.
I had a family member who isn't Jewish write a letter to us about how welcoming and how our rabbi was and how he felt accepted, in the temple. And that was huge for me because I know that Rabbi has worked hard to make sure that we have a place in Georgia, in the South.
Judaism and the way Rabbi Lebow taught us was very, I could relate to a lot of things that, that Judaism teach. And it wasn't much of a big, a transition for me to convert to Judaism. And he certainly made it much easier to transition.
I took classes for about 2 years. I was in his class for a couple of years, so this had been a long process. And I was a little nervous because I still thought he might say, you've got all this ground to still cover. You've got all this to still do, or you've got, all these things to still learn. And he said, Lyric, you've been at this long enough. Let's set a date.
I knew we wanted to raise our kids Jewish, and I wanted to be able to participate and know what that meant for my family. And we wanted to have a Jewish household and a Jewish family. And so that's why I'm converting. And I was a little skeptical about explaining that to him. It wasn't necessarily from a religious standpoint. But yeah, I went in there and explained it to him, and he was totally open to it.
And I especially respect him for promoting social action. One, that's what I was raised to believe. Two, I think it's an important Jewish value. And I appreciate that it's not easy, right? Because not everybody in the synagogue is going to have the same views on every important issue of social action. And I think he's done an amazing job of navigating that.
Rabbi, you have given Leo Frank a voice that was lost for decades. But I know your ultimate goal, and one that I know you will achieve, and that you will continue to pursue with vigilance, is to strive for Leo Frank's complete exoneration. This will occur, Rabbi, and this will be one of your most important legacies.
We founded in 1982 with a very small group of people, but it wasn't until he came and his influence and his charisma that really brought people in. And everything we've done since 1986, I guess it was when he came, has his fingerprints on it. So, you know, his legacy will be our congregation being strong and active for generations to come.